This week has this week has been an absolute roller coaster, and unless you've been living underneath a rock, you've probably already heard by now that Sora from Kingdom Hearts is the final fighter coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It was basically the unthinkable thing, the impossible act. Nobody ever expected that it could ever be true because Disney owns, I'm assuming it's just a majority, but they own a lot, if not all, of the rights to Kingdom Hearts, and Square Enix just makes the games, and they probably have rights as well. I'm not sure how that all works, and I'm not here to tell you that either. And that's an amazing thing that Sora is coming to Smash. I still am just absolutely floored about it, and the more I think about it, the happier I get. And while John and I were watching this all unfold in front of our eyes, we were watching the Smash Bros. Reveal with Sakurai, we also learned that the entire Kingdom Hearts series is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and we were super excited about it. It's something that tons of people have been asking for forever. I personally have only played Kingdom Hearts 1. I've played through Chain of Memories back in the day on Game Boy Advance. And, I've dabbled in 2, but I never made it more than like 5 hours in. So I've been hoping for a real long time that the series would come over, so that way I would have a portable handheld way to play Kingdom Hearts 2 and some of the other ones like Birth by Sleep I've heard is amazing from the PlayStation Portable. And so, lots of people, including me, have been hoping that these games would come over. And it's finally been announced that they are. And many of you, I imagine, that are watching this video probably already know why this is a roller coaster of a week and why I'm extremely sad about this announcement. And it's the fact that the entire series is coming to the Switch, but in the form of cloud versions. And no, not Cloud from Final Fantasy VII or Kingdom Hearts. That would be incredibly weird and cool, but that's not the case. These are going to be streamed versions that you can play on your Nintendo Switch. Now, I am no expert in explaining how cloud gaming works, but for anyone that's unaware, basically what happens is you download an application onto your Switch from the eShop, and then when you boot it up, which I played a bunch of Hitman 3, or I played the demo of Hitman 3 essentially earlier today, so that's kind of where I get some of my information from, is that you boot up the application, and then the game is basically run on a server somewhere, thanks to Square Enix, and then that game is then streamed to your system, kind of like watching Netflix or streaming music online. And then any button inputs that you make on your controls get sent over to that system, and you see what happens on your Switch system. So it's basically like, it's your game. You're playing it, but it's being run on someone else's system. And the cool thing about that is it allows you to play way more complex games, graphically speaking, than the Switch can handle. So like currently Hitman 3 is available in the US here, Resident Evil 7 is available in Japan, and there's a couple other cloud streaming games. Control is also one of them. And so it's a really great feature when it comes to games that couldn't be reworked to run well on the Switch. So like, so far what we know is Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 HD are coming to Nintendo Switch, which includes Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep, and then cinematics of 358 over 2 days, and I believe Recoded. And then you also have Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, which includes Dream Drop Distance, which was on the 3DS, and then you have Birth by Sleep, which was the PSP one, and then you also have this movie called X Back Cover, and I know nothing about it. So you have all those games, right? And then you also have Kingdom Hearts 3 coming over to the Switch as well as a cloud streamed game. Lots of people have talked about this online already, and that it makes a lot of sense that Kingdom Hearts 3 or even Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance and the back cover movie, sure, whatever. All those are cloud versions. Okay, fine. But the problem we have here is Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 and all of those other games. They've been updated over the years. They were released on PlayStation 3 and they were released on PlayStation 4. I just recently went back and I started playing Kingdom Hearts 1 again on my PS4 Pro, and it looks amazing. It really does. It still feels like a PS2 game, but graphically speaking, it's been cleaned up very, very well. And I could see how that game could have issues running on Switch, but it doesn't seem like the impossible thing. Traditionally with cloud streamed games is normally you have stuff that you would never expect to see on Switch is now playable. And it's always been kind of okay. It's not, like Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out soon from Square Enix and Eidos, and that is a game that we probably wouldn't have on Switch without cloud streaming. But the Kingdom Hearts series, the earlier ones, it kind of feels like that this is just kind of like an excuse. Square Enix and Disney together should have been able to pool their resources together to make the Kingdom Hearts series on Switch natively running a possibility. So the problem with cloud gaming truly is it comes down to the fact that you do not have the game downloaded on your system. A person could argue, like for the collector's sake of it, you're never really truly owning the game. Sure, that's one thing, and I feel very strongly about that. But the problem that I see is that you have to be tethered to the internet in order to play this. I did some testing with Hitman 3 today in specific, and I was able to play it wireless and wired, with a wireless and a wired connection on my Switch, and it ran pretty well. I did experience some like little audio hiccups here and there, some stuttering. It ran pretty well, better than I was expecting. But one of the problems here is that all of the Kingdom Hearts games, I went on howlongtobeat.com just to kind of reference this, and they say that the majority of the Kingdom Hearts games are each about 30-hour games. And the best part about the Switch, I think the whole reason why the Switch is such a cool system is that you're able to take your game from your TV, you're able to pick it up, and you're able to take it on the go with you. You're able to play, on a long car ride, you're able to play at your friend's house, in a hotel, and you don't need a TV. You're able to take that same exact save file, and you can play it anywhere. And the Switch, for me, I can very truthfully speak firsthand at this, is that it's caused me to beat a lot of games that I maybe would have never actually finished on other consoles, because you're able to pick it up and play it for an hour or 2 hours on a car ride or something, and you're able to still be connected to that individual game. And with the cloud service, I tested it. You can kind of run a game from a Wi-Fi hotspot, as an example. So I took Hitman 3 on my Switch and my phone outside, and granted, I was running on 4G LTE because I have an old iPhone 7 Plus that I still use. It looked considerably worse. I unfortunately don't have any gameplay of that because I didn't have a way to capture it, but it worked, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't a good experience, and it felt like like when I would move the camera left and right, it would sway, and there was a lot of delay to it. When I was hardwired, I didn't really experience as many issues. You can still tell that it's a cloud streamed game, but it wasn't too bad. And so a lot of people might be thinking, well, so what? So many people just play their Nintendo Switch on their screen anyway, on their TV anyways. There's a lot of reasons here that this cloud thing might not be so bad. And so now I want to think about the accessibility in general of these Kingdom Hearts cloud versions. I want you to think, if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, or if you're even a big fan of a video game series that has impacted you over the course of your life, I want you to think about the first time you ever played those games. And try and think really hard back to when you did. For me, I've talked about this before already, but I remember that I played Kingdom Hearts with my friend Jonathan at his house. We played it on his PS2. We played it. I went out and got the game basically so that way we could play it at his house. And I had so many fond memories of it that I picked up Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories when it came to Game Boy Advance, and that game impacted me for years. I actually I bought the soundtrack at GameStop or Software Etc. way back in the day because I loved it so much, and I would jam to it during like our league Saturday bowling practice. A lot of you that are probably watching this are adults now, and you have the ability to pay however much these cloud versions are going to be. Maybe Square is going to charge $50, $60 for them. I have no idea. They can charge whatever they want, and we can choose to buy it or not. But we have the ability to buy these games. We can play them on our TV on a wired connection. We can take up the TV. But now I want you to think about the kids of today. How many kids can you think of that actually have the ability to pay however much for a digital copy of this game, or have parents that would be willing to figure out a cloud version and help them with it? And kids are smart. Maybe kids can just figure it out. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. And with these cloud versions, you're basically removing the access from these kids. They're not able to play these games in these different areas like the Switch is supposed to allow you to. And the reason why I asked about, your first experience with Kingdom Hearts is because I feel like a lot of people might go, oh, like kids aren't going to want to play Kingdom Hearts. I think that's completely false. If you look at Kingdom Hearts yes, it has lots of Final Fantasy characters and things like that, but the series as a whole has characters from Lion King, from Mulan, from Toy Story. Even Kingdom Hearts 3 has characters from Frozen. And there's so many kids out there. And Mickey Mouse is a huge deal to kids. By not creating a physical version that runs natively on Switch, like think of all the kids that could have gotten Kingdom Hearts for Christmas this year if Square Enix would have put in the resources, the time and effort, and along with Disney. It can't just be Square Enix's fault. It has to be Disney too. Think of all of the kids that could be getting this game this holiday season or next year or for the years on, and they're just not going to be because all of us adults are so upset that it's a cloud release, and because we think that kids aren't going to be able to play it, or aren't going to be happy with playing it. They're not going to get the true Kingdom Hearts experience. And now there is an argument to be said that these games will run better. They'll look better running through the cloud because you'll get a better graphical output from them. And I definitely understand that outlook. I think that is definitely one of the positives of cloud gaming. But I think that's all dependent on your internet. And that's another thing, is that there are lots of kids. If you walk into like my public library, actually in the area here, they have Wi-Fi hotspot cards, or like basically packages that a family can rent from them for free. And and the reason, I think part of the reason why they're doing that is because there are so many families out there that don't have internet at home, or I guess just even Wi-Fi. Like I know a number of people that don't have internet at home because it's an extra bill every month on top of all of the other bills that we all have just for existing on this rock, this planet anyways. And, so for all these people that don't have Wi-Fi at home, aren't going to be able to play, or a hardwired connection, aren't going to be able to play this new Kingdom Hearts. And you could try to stream it from your phone, but like I said with Hitman, that was not a very successful experience. I would not want to play a game streamed through my phone like that onto my Switch. And it just isn't. It makes it harder and harder for people to try and enjoy this series. Now, we reached out to Square Enix and asked them what was the decision to make all of the Kingdom Hearts games, every single one of them, cloud-based versions for the Nintendo Switch. Why did they do that? Why didn't they just make Kingdom Hearts 3 a cloud-based version? Because a lot of people can relate and understand with that, at least. And I'm no game developer, so I cannot really understand. I can only commentate from the sidelines here. And we also asked them if they ever have plans of potentially re-releasing Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, or 1.5 and 2.5 individually on the eShop. And maybe this cloud version is just a stopgap. Maybe that's the case. Unfortunately, we did not get a response yet. And if we do, we'll make sure to leave it in the comments down below. We'll probably put up an article on Nintendo Life about it as well. So definitely check back in a couple days, and maybe we'll have a response. But at the moment, we don't. But what I can say, though, YouTuber Modern Vintage Gamer, who's also actually a game developer for Night Dive Studios, I believe, and Limited Run Games, commented on this. And I highly recommend that you go check out his video. We'll have a link to that in the description down below as well. He released it a couple days ago, I think, and it's basically just a lot of his opinions on kind of why this hasn't come out. And a few things that he mentioned, which I'll talk about briefly here, is the fact that Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 HD on PlayStation 4, as it's already released there, is around a 50 gigabyte download. And Nintendo Switch cartridges, I think they do make 64 gigabyte game cards, but they're very uncommon, and they're costly for publishers and manufacturers to put their games on. It's much more expensive than Square Enix buying a boatload of 8 gigabyte carts or 4 gigs or whatever it is. And so maybe it's come down to part of the fact that in order to put this game on Switch, it would just be too big. But then, as John, our own John Cartwright, mentioned on Twitter, he actually pointed out that other Square Enix ports like Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy XII have all come over to the Nintendo Switch. And I believe, let me pull it up here. So John mentions that Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age on PlayStation 4 is about a 40 gigabyte download. And this is according to GameIdealist.com. And then according to Nintendo Soup, John also mentioned this as well, that The Zodiac Age, Final Fantasy XII, is around a 12 or 13 gigabyte download on Nintendo Switch. So when Square Enix ported these games over to Switch, they definitely were able to remove a lot of details from the games to make them smaller download sizes. And so it doesn't sound like it's out of the question. But another thing that Modern Vintage Gamer brought up is that apparently, it sounds like Square Enix put out some feelers with some of their developers and kind of tried to find out if anyone would want to take on the job of porting Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2 onto Switch natively. And it sounds like it was just such a big task that nobody was up to it, or potentially nobody was up to it with the allotted amount of time that Square Enix gave them, because it sounds like it would be quite a monumental task to actually get these games running on Switch. And especially because MVG also mentioned that the PS3 was notoriously difficult to develop for. So it's probably not as easy as just taking the 1.5 and 2.5 versions from PlayStation 3 and bringing them over to Switch, as much as we wish it would be. The other thing to keep in mind too is that we have no idea how long Sora has actually been in development for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate either, as a character. And maybe Square Enix and Disney were trying to find somebody to port these games natively. They ran out of time and they felt that they really, really had to announce that these games were coming to Switch soon. So they announced it as cloud versions, just because they were strapped for time and they really wanted to make sure these games were playable on Switch. And hopefully, you know, like the question that we posed to Square Enix asked, hopefully this is just a stopgap. Hopefully eventually they actually take the time and effort, they find somebody to put these games over onto Switch. We posted an article back in 2020, and this was mentioned through an interview with Nintendo Enthusiast, but they were interviewing Tetsuya Nomura, and Tetsuya Nomura, basically through some translations, stated that apparently Square Enix had considered ports of the other games, but it was technologically difficult, and so they didn't have any plans to release any other Kingdom Hearts games on Switch at that time. And this was in, I believe it was September of 2020. And now obviously that has changed. And the other thing too that I want to point out, when there's a cloud version of a game running on Switch, it still has to be reworked, you know, in order for the Switch to run it smoothly. You know, the Switch doesn't understand every engine that a game might be running on, so sometimes they have to rework the game. So it's not as easy as just like, to my knowledge, it's not as easy as just like copy pasting Kingdom Hearts from PS4 over to Switch and then the cloud version just just works, you know. But it does sort of feel like why Kingdom Hearts is such a huge series. Square Enix is a big company, and so is Disney. And so why are we at the point where they couldn't take the resources, they couldn't find the time, they couldn't push it out to actually do this the right way? I don't want to say this, I guess it's just for a lack of a better word, but it really feels lazy, because fans deserve better. We don't know any details about when the games are going to release or how much they're going to cost, unfortunately, but I imagine that Square Enix is probably going to charge an arm and a leg for them. And currently, if you go walk into your local Walmart or a Target, or even if you just check online, browse around, you can actually find, this isn't the exact one, but you can find the all-in-one bundle, I think it is, which for PlayStation 4, which has Kingdom Hearts, the story so far, which is 9 Kingdom Hearts games, and a couple of them are playable movies, like I mentioned before, but 9 Kingdom Hearts games in here, plus Kingdom Hearts 3. And I think when I was checking on eBay, you can get that for around $35 now. And it almost feels like a slap in the face to Kingdom Hearts fans to ask them to pay an absorbent amount of money to play these games on Switch through cloud streaming when you don't have the ability to play them portably, which is the whole appeal of the Nintendo Switch. And I also completely understand the argument that there are going to be plenty of people out there that only own a Nintendo Switch. They don't have a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 3 or a PS2 or other means to play them. And for you, you know, the people out there that can take advantage of the cloud service, I'm so happy for you, and I'm stoked, and I'm really glad that you're going to have a way to be able to play these games, because that's the most important thing, is accessibility, and we need that. But it feels like we're getting the Kingdom Hearts series on Switch, but half-baked. If Sora from Kingdom Hearts is important enough to break the internet by being the final character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I'm pretty sure the series as a whole, or even the first few games, can be important enough for Disney and Square Enix to find a way to get them running natively on Switch. In a perfectly reasonable world, how would you like to see this situation handled? If Square decided to release Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix and 2 Final Mix, which are kind of like the beefed up versions that we didn't get until years later, if they released those on Switch individually for like $30 or $40 a piece, but they ran natively on Switch, would that be too expensive for you? Or would you do it for the portability aspect, or the fact that you actually are owning these games on your system? To me, that sounds reasonable. I think that's enough for me to double dip on those games, even though I have a perfectly functioning PS4 copy here. The ability to be able to play those games whenever is a huge deal, at least to me. But of course, let us know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, if you're someone who's also totally fine with the cloud versions, let us know. We definitely want to hear from you too. So we actually did a poll over on nintendolife.com asking if anyone would be getting the cloud versions of Kingdom Hearts on Switch. And it got, at the time of recording, it has about 7,000 votes, and 47% of people actually said absolutely not. And then another 34% said that they'd actually would have preferred to have actual ports. And then the other 19% said they're not sure, or yeah, they'll get it. And that 47%, it's very close to 50%, do not want anything to do with this. So please, Square Enix, if you're listening, reconsider this. Consider finding someone, some company out there to port these games natively. I hope this video does some good. I hope it doesn't upset anyone anymore. I just really wanted to talk about this because I've gone back, like I said, and I've been playing Kingdom Hearts 1. I'm only I did a bit of the second world, and I'm on the Alice world now, and it's incredible to be back in this universe, and I absolutely want to stick with it. I want to play Kingdom Hearts 2, but I don't want to be tethered to my TV all the time to do it. And Square, Disney, I think you guys have the resources. Just make it happen. Do it for Sora. Do it for us. Do it for the kids. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm ZM from Nintendo Life. I hope I got all my points out there. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time. Now time to get wrecked in some Lion King. If Digital Eclipse can put every single version of the Lion King on Nintendo Switch, I think Disney can figure out a way to put at least one Kingdom Hearts game natively on. Maybe that's not really realistic, but it sounded fine in my head.